Hi, I'm Tram Anh Nguyen. I'm the co-founder of CFTE, and I welcome you to the Upskilling series. We all see the world going digital, rapidly transforming our lives, our jobs, and the way we live all together. In fact, the pandemic has only been a catalyst to this transformation, and it's up to us to adapt to this technology-driven world. So how do you adapt to these changes? How do you find talent for the roles that don't exist yet? Well, the Upskilling series aims to find its answers to all these questions by interviewing global experts, CEOs of Fintech startups, and thought leaders to shed some lights on the jobs of tomorrow in financial services and Fintech. Let's start with our next guest.
Today, I'm extremely pleased to welcome today Philippe Gelis, CEO and co-founder of Kantox, and I'm super happy to have him with us today.
Hello.
Hi, Philippe.
Hi, how are you?
I'm good. I'm very excited. I'm very excited to welcome Philippe Gelis today with us. I've known Philippe for many years now, and it's a special moment, even more than anything else, because today, Philippe Gelis and Kantox are celebrating their 10-year anniversary. So happy anniversary, happy birthday to Kantox and to you.
Thank you.
So my first question, because, we've always been wanting to find out more about yourself, Philippe, how did you start your career?
So I've been a strategy consultant during 8 years before Kantox, in Deloitte in particular. So I didn't start as an entrepreneur. I had, when I was younger, no special willingness to go to the tech industry. So it was a bit of luck, if I can say it that way. But also by working in Deloitte, we were working with a lot of clients, let's say mid-cap companies or large caps. And this is where we started understanding that corporate finance at a large sense was very old school, very manual, very little technology, very little software for financial services. And this is where we basically got the idea for what nowadays is Kantox.
And what Kantox do?
So, in a nutshell, we build software for companies, usually mid-cap companies and more large caps, that basically automate anything related to foreign currency management. They are basically facing risk related to market volatility. And our software, which is embedded in clients' systems, ERPs, TMS, is managing 24 hours a day currency risk to make sure that clients are basically not losing money. So it's really a very new approach to FX, because before it was mainly driven by people, human decision, and trading on venues or even over the phone still. And our software basically completely replacing people and streamlining all the process. So it's a completely new approach.
Very, very interesting. Today it's about skills. It's about upskilling. And my first question to you would be, Philippe, how do you personally acquire new skill and upskill yourself?
That's a broad question. Reading. I think reading is the most important thing. I will say during the 3 or 4 years before starting Kantox, even if I had no specific idea at that time of when I was going to build a company or even what kind of business in what industry, I was reading a lot about entrepreneurship at a large sense. And I think you have so much to learn about entrepreneurship just by reading, because it's not really something that business schools are tackling, in my opinion. Even if you can have some kind of entrepreneurship modules or classes, but in general, it's not something that business schools are really focused on. And then I spend a lot of time with other entrepreneurs, and ideally with people that have built bigger and more successful companies than mine, because this is when you really you learn a lot. Always being with people that are better than you. It's really the best way to progress.
You are so humble, but you've done so much, and I keep learning from you a lot. Every time I listen to you, there's so much I can learn from you. Could you tell me, because I know you care a lot about people, about your team at Kantox, and could you tell me some successful initiative that you got to do to get your team to upskill?
So I think the best example in Kantox is probably the sales team. What we do is fairly new. So what I mean is building a software to manage FX in corporates is not something that existed years ago. So we are really educating the market. And when you educate the market, you need to have salespeople that in the end are much closer to consultants, to people that will really understand clients' needs, clients' pain points, and really find a way to use our technology to solve problems than the typical salesperson, which has this typical relatively aggressive sales orientation. So we have built what we name Kantox Academy, which is internally an initiative where when you join the sales team, you will spend a couple of weeks of training full time. And after that, trainings is happening once or twice a week. So we always say we want to be a training machine, because if you are not, very quickly what will happen is your sales team will eventually lose ground because your product is evolving constantly, not progress fast enough. And eventually when competition one day will come, they will catch up. So in our view, our salespeople are never trained enough. I mean, I would like days to have 30 hours instead of 24 to spend 6 additional hours to train them. You know what I mean? So I think it's extremely important to spend time every week training. And training can be something done formally with someone really teaching something, but reading is also a way of training. I always say to people, independently of your field, you should spend hours every week training. Every week. It's an ongoing process. It's not something you do and once you are trained, it's over. No, it's something that should never stop.
Yeah, it's remarkable. I didn't know about Kantox Academy, so well done for setting that up. It's very, very good. Any advice to fellow leaders on upskilling, how to transform your people in a startup?
What's really challenging is when we speak about startups, we speak about small companies that when they're successful are growing relatively fast. So some are growing fast and some extremely fast. And the problem is usually people that are good and bringing value in the beginning do not necessarily keep up the pace. Keep up the pace in the sense that it's very different to sell a product when you are the only salesperson, and then when you have 10 people selling or 50 people selling. It's the same when you are, let's say, in marketing and you are the single person and then you have a team of 10. So what's really challenging is that you need to make sure that you can really support your people from the beginning all along as the company is growing. And this is very challenging because, it's something very personalized in the sense that you cannot train everyone the same way. Some people are very strong, big strengths and weaknesses. So it has to be personalized in some way. But on the other side, you cannot have everything personalized because it's unmanageable. So what's really very important, in my opinion, is to make sure that first you let time for people to train and learn and progress. And when I say time, again, every week they have times they can spend on trainings, they can spend on reading. When you identify weaknesses, the same, you should, in a transparent way, tell it to people and push them to improve in that sense. And something we have done in the last 12 months that's very, very, very valuable, and I will invite any tech company or any company to do so. We have someone internally that was basically trained on coaching and that became a coach, so a real one. It's a long process. And now we have like a coaching, let's say, initiative internally. So anyone that is struggling on something, that's really facing a challenge, or that's going through a tough moment because basically this person is not delivering what was expected, we have a coach internally that this person can go and speak to the coach and try to improve and try to understand why eventually targets were not achieved and why really the project or anything didn't went as expected. And it's very valuable because it really helps people taking a step back and really try to understand what they can improve and how they will improve. So coaching is something that can make a massive difference in the company. At least in our case, in the last 12 months, it has been transformative, I would say.
No, that's very, very good. And so would it be the way that you attract and retain the right talent in order to transform your organization towards a new way, a new culture, ways of working? How do you do that, and was it hard?
What's hard in the tech industry is there are trends or waves, if I can say it that way. So, for example, if you think about fintech, eventually 2 years ago, neobanks were super hot. So anyone wanted to go to a neobank. And nowadays, it's maybe a bit less the case, and it's another product category. So what's very hard in tech is, independently of the ecosystem you are in, there are trends and waves. And when you are at the top of the wave, it's fairly easy because you have a lot of people that want to join. But when the next trend or wave is coming, eventually you are going through tough moments. And then you have also the dynamics of the local ecosystem, where eventually you have the super hot company of the moment, so everyone wants to go there. So it never ends. It's a constantly changing environment. In our case, what we try to do is first to avoid all the trendy things. There are companies, they basically constantly try to either to overpay people, either to offer so many perks that at some point it's completely stupid and nonsense, in my opinion. So what we try to do is to make sure that in terms of salaries, packages, and perks, what we offer is good. But we don't try to outcompete anyone or to be above the market. What we try to do then is to find people that really want to focus on something for the long term, to which we try to offer a career path and a lot of training again, because what a lot of people want nowadays is to make sure they are constantly improving, as they can really, have a very successful career. It's not that much anymore about, I get a job, I like it, and I will think about my next step later or no. So they're always thinking what I will do next. So what we try to do is to make sure that when they come here, maybe they will stay 1 year, maybe they will stay 3 years, maybe 5 years, but the day they will leave eventually, they will think it has been a very, very interesting journey. I have learned a lot. I'm much better than I was. And now I will be even more successful than what I have been and what we try to be. But it's challenging, let's be clear.
That's very, very good. And tell me, Philippe, when you started Kantox 10 years ago, I'm sure you had perhaps, a type of people you were after. When you launch your company, you are looking after a certain type of people and who they are. And today, who are the people you are hiring? What are the qualities for anyone who would like to be working for you?
I would say that independently of the moment, patience is extremely important. So passionate people about what we do, about fintech, about technology, because this is what will make the difference over the mid and long run. Eventually, if you hire someone who doesn't have industry knowledge, that's not necessarily a problem, because you can learn quickly. But if you don't have the patience, the motivation, and if you don't have the right culture in terms of fast-paced and fast-moving environments, and companies which are very flat in terms of organization, where execution is really challenging, these are things that people don't really learn. And I think this is one of the big challenges for people coming from financial institutions to fintech. It's not that much about the knowledge, because very often they have already quite significant knowledge. But very often what's challenging for them is that it's such a different mindset that it's very hard for them to evolve. And in particular, if they have stayed a long time in the financial institution. I mean, if you have spent a couple of years in investment banking as an analyst, fine. But if you have spent 20 years in a financial institution, it's eventually much harder. Not that you cannot do it. And in particular, more and more, we have fintechs that are becoming fairly big, and they need also people that have seniority and a lot of knowledge and connection in the industry. But realistically, what's really hard is the mindset. I mean, changing your mindset is something that for many people is very, very challenging.
It's very, very true. And who are the people you are hiring at the moment?
You mean in terms of profile?
Yes, profiles. Like, what are the type of profiles you are hiring today, or compared to perhaps 5 years ago? Is there any change? And
Not that much. Not that much in the sense that we are a B2B enterprise company. So there are two main teams, basically technology, so nothing very surprising, and commercial. So commercial for me, it means salespeople, but also a customer success team and a marketing team. And in a company like ours, to make a long story short, the commercial team is basically 25-30% of the company. The technology team is the same, 25-30%, and they are growing at the same pace. So, we will never have the sales team, which will be twice or three times the size of technology. They are really evolving at the same pace because the more clients you have, the more engineers you need. So it's really the two teams that are, let's say, the two key drivers in the company and that are growing at the same pace.
And where do you find these people?
This is a question for my human resources team, but I mean,
or how can they find you? I mean, where should they apply? Or
so we are not very original, if I can say it that way, in that sense. What we try to do is first to be very different and innovative, and I think we are. And this is really a way to have people coming to you. I mean, if you are the copycat number 10 of something, it's harder. If you are the neobank number 252, it's also harder. But in our niche, which is, again, a very, very specific product, we try to always be at the forefront, to be opinion leaders, to write a lot of content. And this basically makes that we receive a lot of CVs and people that are reaching us. And I think this is eventually the best way to really attract talent, because when you go proactively after people, like with, for example, search agencies, which is something that I don't like, even if we use some of them, to be honest. But I think when people come to you, they come with a very different mindset than when you go after them and try to hire them. So what we try to make sure is that we are different, we are innovative, people that work here really like it, an attraction point to talent more than going after them. Then there is also some realities. For example, if you are hiring hundreds of people a year, as some fintech companies, this can hardly work. You need also to proactively look after people. But we are at a size, 120 people, where we can really play the game of people coming to us. And I really prefer that.
No, it's very good. And at CFT, we have a lot of people and a lot of people coming to us to get trained and to learn about fintech. And a lot of them are from the finance professionals. Their background is traditional finance. And they're coming to us because this is a moment where they want to switch. They want to switch career, and they're considering even getting into a fintech. So my question is that, what's the best piece of advice you would give to a financial professional who is looking to get into Kantox?
Kantox or fintech?
Both.
Okay. I will say that first, if you really have an appetite for fintech and you want to switch at some point, you have to be or to become a heavy fintech user. I mean, if I was a finance professional in an investment bank with 10 or 20 years experience, first I will make sure that I use a neobank, I use some other kind of fintech to really start understanding the differences in terms of product, user experience, really to get really a high level view of the industry as a user. Because it's extremely important to really feel what it is from inside as a user again. Then definitely I will try to spend time in fintech heavens to try to speak to people, not just to listen, really to speak to people, to have chats, to exchange, because really what I think hardly work, and it often happens to me that I go to a place, an event, something like this, and I have a finance professional coming to me to speak to me and speak about fintech and blah, blah, and they're looking for a switch. And then after 2 minutes, you understand that they have never used a neobank, that they have never used a fintech product. They have no clue of what it is really. And in that case, for me, it's definitely immediately a no-go. I mean, I need to feel that people really like it, or at least have an interest in testing the product, in learning, because if not, I mean, there are, I was going to say thousands, not even thousands, millions of finance professionals that eventually want or will have to switch at some point. So you need to make sure that you have already put a finger, if I can say it that way, in the fintech space. And there is nothing better than starting by being a user. I don't know, use a robo-advisor, do a bit of fintech wealth management, a bit of online lending, anything. But you need to start really feeling the industry as a user. It's the best way really to understand.
Yeah, no, that's a very piece of advice. Thanks, Philippe. And now talking about future, what are the top jobs you are seeing being created today and most in demand compared to 5 years ago?
I would say that 5 years ago, fintech was very, very, very B2C. So it was a lot about user experience, marketing, and stuff like this, communication. And I think that more and more we are seeing not a switch to B2B, but the B2B space in the fintech space, which was the weak point, if I can say it that way. Now it's a bit the reverse. And a lot of people and investors understand the value of B2B, and in particular in terms of unit economics, profitability. So what's clear is that then when you go to B2B, and in particular to enterprise, and enterprise is still very early, what's definitely missing, and which is very specific to enterprise, are salespeople and great salespeople. And financial institutions are full of salespeople. Mm-hmm. But my biggest learning here is that very often what these people do not understand is when you work, let's say, in a large bank, you are not selling. Clients are captive. They are coming. So basically, they reach you and you sell something to them. But when you move to a fintech, you have to be a really good seller to be able to sell something to a third party without having the bank behind you. So I think there is a massive opportunity for salespeople in fintech, B2B enterprise in the future. But again, it's a very different in the bank. So by default, they come to you. So closing a sales is not very challenging. When you have fintech starting from scratch and you need to capture new clients, it's much more challenging. But I think there is a massive opportunity in fintech, in B2B sales in the future.
And my last question would be, what tips would you give to someone now aiming to a C-level position in a startup?
So someone from the financial industry?
Doesn't have to, but what would be, your tips in general for someone aiming for a C-level position in a startup?
I would say that in general, I always say to my people, you need to think that you are the co-CEO. So you need to act as if you were the CEO in your own team and field. So if you are the, let's say, chief commercial officer, you need to act as if you were the CEO of the commercial part in the company. If you are the chief marketing officer, you need to act with the same kind of ambition, passion, and aggressiveness as if you were the CEO of the company. So it's being a CXO in a startup and in a tech company. It has nothing to do as a large company where basically everything is already up and running. Growth ambition are very low compared to a tech company. So your role is much more to be a manager. When you are CXO in a startup, your role is to change everything every week, to keep on having massive ambition and to keep on really challenging everything internally to make sure that the company is really a rocket ship. You know what I mean? So in terms of mindset, it's not a management role. It's really an entrepreneur role. And I insist a lot of this.
Yes, I think it's the entrepreneurial mindset. We keep saying that, but I think the big difference between working for a large organization and working for a company like a startup, I think is the mindset. it's the adaptability, and I totally agree with you. You've been sharing this, throughout the interview, and I really think it's very, very true. I think you answered a lot of questions most people have in mind. And how can people find you, Philippe?
On LinkedIn.
On LinkedIn.
I do not really answer on other social networks or stuff like that, but LinkedIn for business, I think it's really working very well. I very often have people reaching me, entrepreneurs, or people that want to work with us, or just people from the industries that want to share ideas. So I think LinkedIn is really good for that, and I usually answer any request except when there are salespeople looking to sell something.
Thanks a lot, Philippe. And again, thanks a lot for your time. Happy anniversary to Kantox.
Thank you.
It was a pleasure having you with us. And I really hope to see you very soon in London.
Me too. Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thanks. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. I hope you've learned a lot. I'm already looking forward to the next interview. In the meantime, if you wish to learn more about the new world of finance, I invite you to check our previous videos where we welcome many guest experts to share their views. You can check out CFT's blog and articles to learn more and start your fintech journey. If you'd like to go further, you can acquire the basics in fintech, AI or open banking under 40 minutes with our free masterclasses from our experts. You can find all this information in the description below. Again, thank you for being with us today and see you for the next interview.